The single leg deadlift is one of the most beneficial exercises for distance athletes. So when you look at distance sports, specifically running, hip extension is one of the most important movements. If you think of every step we take, we need to propel and push the body off forward. So learning how to hinge properly through the hips, what doesn't necessarily look exactly like that push-off motion, but we're utilizing the glutes, we're getting some flexibility and mobility through the hip and the hamstrings. It's a very beneficial exercise to learn how to execute properly. With that being said, I always like to start a lot of my runners off with the standard deadlift or the straight leg deadlift first, just to teach them how to properly hinge through the hips without getting extra motion through the lumbar spine. A lot of times if we jump a step ahead to the single leg RDL, we'll get a lot of extra motion around this lower back to create the movement. In reality, the low back and the spine stay flat. It's only the hip that's moving, doing the motion. So in the single leg RDL, a good starting point is to not even add any weight to the movement. It's called the single leg reaching deadlift. So with that movement, you're gonna stand on one leg, small bend in the knee at all times. This knee angle does not change. You always have a small bend there. What you're going to do is hinge through the hip, let your hip move, hamstring lengthens, arm reaches out forward, and then you're gonna drive, try to squeeze the butt to pull you back up. So this motion from hip flexion here to hip extension is the same motion that or the same muscles we're utilizing when we get that push off through the running cycle to propel our body forwards. So that is the first variation. After that, once we learn how to move specifically around the hip without any lower back motion, no arching, no extension at the spine, no extra motion at the knee joint. You'll notice a lot of people come here and they'll start to lower down and bend that knee more. Once we can control that and keep the knee the same, we can add some weight to the movement. First, I always like to start with the opposite side arm. So if I'm standing on my left leg, I'm going to use or hold a dumbbell in my right arm, just because if you think fascially how our system is connected, the functional fascial line which connects this right shoulder through the back, the lats, the glutes to the left hip, we can actually create an enhanced stability by kind of involving this cross connection. So through here, what we're gonna do is small bend in the knee, keep the shoulder blade in the right arm held back. We're gonna drive through the hip. It's a little shaky there. Nice and slow all the way down, and then drive up. This dumbbell stays pretty close to the shin at all times. You almost want it under the body as opposed to really reaching out forward. The further the dumbbell reaches away from your center of mass, the more stress you're going to place at the low back extensors and the lumbar spine. So that motion right there, or that movement, is the single leg RDL. You can really focus at that forward flex position at the hip to engage and squeeze the glute to drive the hips back up.